The Toronto Raptors lose to the Spurs. The Blue Jays lose to the Dodgers after 18 innings. It is 3 a.m. Eastern, and I am tired. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting meetings right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
Raptors rookie Collin Murray-Boyles poured in 19 points in 23 minutes on 13 shots in his second game of his career, showing off his full package as a roller, finishing at the basket. The Raptors really got him working on these pick and rolls, and he just did a good job of finishing and using his craft around the basket to finish. One of the big questions for him coming out of college was how much his finishing would translate, but one thing that wasn't a question was his defense. So look how he gets his hand in this cookie jar here to swipe at Devin Vassell, forces a turnover. That's one of his 3 steals tonight, and the Raptors get out and running. Now, unfortunately, he didn't complete the transition play, but a good defensive play regardless. Another big question mark for CMB heading into this season was his three-point shot. He knocked down 3 threes tonight, all of them above the break, which is an incredible sign for his overall range moving forward in the future. I like that he can put the ball down on the floor in transition too. He's a capable ball handler, finds Brandon Ingram in the corner, and then watch how he immediately cuts, right? He's just aware. He has spatial awareness, so he's going to cut to the basket here, and eventually it's going to lead to an open bucket for himself. And I just like how aggressive he is. So Mamu gets doubled here in the post, and instead of settling for the above the break 3, he's already made one today, he decides to attack the basket, settle into a floater as well. He misses it, but the process there is good. Again, there is a reason that I call him Magneto, because his hands are like magnets that attract the basketball. He does a great job here of getting his hand in the cookie jar against Julian Champagnie, and then just rips the ball out of his hands, pushes in transition, and he's able to find Ochai Agbaji. That is also a beautiful pass. Really, really tough pass to make in transition with your offhand. Well, not your offhand, but with the left hand. Finds Ochai, and the Raptors get a good shot out of it. I also just loved how willing he was to go through Wemby on possessions. The Raptors seemed very scared to attack Wemby, but CMB was not. As you see here later in the third quarter, Wemby catches it. He's going to get tons of space. Look at him. Obviously, CMB has knocked down a 3 already, but look how much space he has. And a great thing that a Men Thompson does, that a Sar Thompson does, is weaponizing this space. Okay, sure, I'm not an elite shooter, but I'm going to use this space to barrel at you to get momentum going downhill. And that's exactly what he does. So he looks for his options, gets downhill, goes through Wemby's chest, draws a foul. Watch the activity here from CMB defensively. So as Dylan Harper is coming, and this is just like a 1-4 pick and roll here between Mamu and Dylan Harper, and they want to get Wemby involved in this action too. So Wemby is about to set a screen, a pick and roll, but he slips to the basket, right? And so CMB immediately switches this action, contains the drive, and does a beautiful contest on Dylan Harper as well. So being able to match up against Wemby, and look how he's fronting Wemby here. Well, no, he's not fronting, but he's going to try and right there in that moment, trying to catch it here. It's pretty quick, but right there he digs in, makes it harder to pass to Wemby, and then he switches on to Harper immediately, and a good contest there as well. Another great defensive possession from CMB, who does a good job of containing Wemby. And Wemby is taller, so his dribble is just naturally higher. CMB does a great job of poking it out. Raptors get out and running. The very next possession here, watch as CMB peel switches immediately. So I just want to show you guys peel switching because it's what the Raptors want to achieve on a night-to-night basis. Ochai Agbaji gets blown by Steph Castle. Peel switching means CMB now has to pick up Steph Castle. He has to contain this drive, and now it's Ochai's job to switch onto Wemby. And so as we see here, CMB does, right? He contains the drive. Ochai switches onto him. Good job by Emmanuel quickly of staying in the lane. And you see The Raptors help defenders, the low man here in Mamu and in RJ, they dig in as well. And so Steph Castle now has to reset, and the Raptors force him into a travel. That's good anticipation by Quickly as well to jump this passing lane right here above the break, right? And so Steph has to pick up his dribble. Good containment here by CMB in pressuring the ball, and it forces a travel for Steph Castle. So constant activity here from Collin Murray-Boyles on this possession. So he's knocked down a couple threes already, right? Wemby wants to jump out it, but it actually stops short of it. Instead of taking this shot, which is a decent shot at this point because he's feeling a rhythm, he decides to attack the basket, try to get some sort of defensive attention. Okay, there's nothing there. I'm going to kick it out to Emmanuel quickly, come here and set a screen. So this is constant activity. And all right, okay, there's nothing there. And good recognition by Brandon Ingram. CMB is wide open here, knocks down a three. Just good activity there from Collin. Again, the Raptors want to achieve this aggressive defensive scheme. A big reason is because a guy like Collin Murray-Boyles and a guy like Scottie Barnes can achieve that scheme pretty well. So they switch this pick and roll. CMB contains his drive on Steph Castle and blocks this shot. Let's just go back and rewind there really quickly. So Scottie Barnes is guarding Steph Castle. They quickly switch this and watch as Scottie gets back on Wemby and Castle is on CMB. Yes, he gets beat by the first crossover, but it's great job recovering and using his length to block that shot. That is really great defense and timing from Collin Murray-Boyles. As we welcome you into the film room, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. It is 3 a.m, y'all. I was ready to break down plays, tell you what is good with this Toronto Raptors team as they struggled in this one to guard and defend once again. It was an ugly performance, truthfully, outside of Collin Murray-Boyles, who was the bright spot. And I think that was very encouraging. It's a very encouraging game from him to see him impact the game in multiple ways, defensively be the guy that he was. I mean, the Raptors got it down to 8 points, I'd say about halfway through the fourth quarter. And a lot of that was because of Collin Murray-Boyles. Defensively, obviously, knocking down his shots, making some timely plays. I thought he was excellent, and he was really the engine that kept them going in that second half. He's going to be a guy who is hard to not play. Like, he completely set the tone for that team, especially with their second unit. And also, he can play some small ball five. He was guarding Wemby there. We saw him in preseason guarding Domantas Sabonis and guarding Nikola Jokic. And while there will be growing pains to that aspect, he very clearly can hold his own against fives. Now, obviously, there will be times where he gets exposed and there will be times where he doesn't look as good defensively, but he was really excellent in this game. And, of course, the three-point shooting makes him more it's 3 a.m. My brain is fried, but it makes him more aware offensively. It makes him more of a utility player offensively, a guy who's useful. That's the word that I'm looking for offensively. And so the jump shot is a big swing factor for Collin Murray-Boyles' career as he moves forward. But I also think the finishing and the touch around the basket is a really big aspect too. And so we saw that tonight. Just his craft around the basket, working in pick and roll settings, working with Jamal Shed. I thought those two had really good timing and connection together. And I just want to see more. I think a lot of Raptors fans want to see more. And because he matches what they want defensively, especially at the point of attack. We saw him guard on the perimeter today. We saw him guard off the ball. I think he can do some really, really good stuff as the low man on the help side, shot blocking and forcing deflections and whatnot. And so there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to CMB. Not much to be excited about elsewhere tonight for the Toronto Raptors. Quiet night for Scottie Barnes as the Raptors lose 121-103. Scottie had 8 points in 30 minutes on 7 shots, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Pretty quiet night. The only bright spot outside of CMB would have been RJ Barrett, who dropped 25 points on 18 shots. He was really part of the comeback for this Raptors team in that third quarter. And Brandon Ingram had a few moments, some good shot making, but truthfully, y'all, and I'm going to be honest, the defense is the big issue here. the Raptors offense, for the most part, has looked functional. And while we can kind of go back and forth and argue on the starting lineup and how functional they look, by the way, Jakob Poeltl did not return in this game. I believe he left early in the fourth quarter with lower back tightness. It looked like it. It looked like his lower back was tight. He could not functionally move. He was struggling against Anthony Davis on Sunday versus the Mavericks. It was clear that he is not 100%. And I want him to take like a week off, like take a while, get yourself right, come back, because it's actually detrimental to this team for him to be not as effective as possible. It's because it's not like he adds, like, of course, Jakob is super important to this team defensively. He is I've talked about it so much, but he provides a baseline of competence because of his rim protection, because of how big he is, because how he can close out defensive possessions with his rebounding. All of that is massive for what this team wants to do on the defensive end of the ball. That being said, when that's not effective, it's actually kind of limiting, because he's obviously the starting center, but he can't provide what he needs to on a night-to-night basis. And so I would rather Jakob Poeltl take a week and get healthy and figure out his back, and hopefully his back gets a little bit better, because it clearly is a hindrance right now to how effective he can be on the floor. And it has this cascading effect on everything else they want to do defensively, because they don't have that backline protection, that security blanket that Jakob usually is. So if you're being aggressive and Jakob is constantly out of his spots, it doesn't work. It's a failure of a system because of it. And I think the Raptors failed on multiple fronts tonight. And okay, we'll do a little bit of film room stuff on how they failed defensively. So I think senseless pressure is a good way to define this Raptors defense. There's really no reason for Scottie Barnes to be fighting over these screens on Steph Castle other than to provide pressure. And so he denies him here, right? He's denying him the ball. Steph Castle catches it, and he's already late. Like, this is already a blow-by situation. And because the help is late, because Wemby is a shooter and Jakob was a little bit further away from his spot than usual, this is a clear drive for Steph Castle. Some more of that ineffectiveness from Jakob Poeltl, just not able to stick with Victor Wembanyama. And truthfully, look, that's a hard task, but you could clearly see he was not as mobile there. Scottie tries to reach on this and tries to help, and so that creates him being forced to recover out. The Spurs do a great job of moving the ball quickly, and that creates an opportunity for Steph Castle to drive once again. You see here, Scottie is pointing at the corner. He's saying, hey, Yak, watch this corner here because Wemby is right here. But Yak also has to protect the rim for Steph Castle, and IQ is pinched in here on this drive, and Devin Vassell. So, look how many threats the Spurs have. Look how many options the Spurs have to them. There's a wide open Steph Castle lane. There's Devin Vassell in the corner. There's Wemby in the corner. If Brandon Ingram were to catch in here, then Julian Champagnie is on the other corner. It's just good spacing, and truthfully, it was because Scottie Barnes risked it for the biscuit here when it comes to Victor Wembanyama earlier. So let's see what happens on this possession. A wide open drive for Steph Castle. So more of just taking risks for little to no reason here, as you see. And look, I understand where the aggressiveness comes from, but this is just not a risk worth taking here with Harrison Barnes all the way above the break and Brandon Ingram guarding him to try and take this steal. It's a good pass, good recognition, and a wide open shot. Again, another good example of senseless pressure. So the Raptors switched this 1-5 pick and roll. Scottie gives him the space. Dylan Harper, who's not a necessary shooter, but watch as R.J. Barrett here knows that that Dylan Harper has picked up his dribble, and so one of his only passing options is Julian Champagnie. R.J. Barrett is going to jump this right here, and look at the opening that creates for Julian Champagnie, because now RJ is much higher up the floor. Champagnie can curl his drive, attack the slower-footed RJ, finds Keldon in the corner. And this is the final one right here. I just want to illustrate a point. There's no reason to be pressuring Jordan McLaughlin like this. I get it. It's being feisty. It's trying to be as aggressive as possible. The Spurs, if you look at the shot clock here, they have 14 seconds left. And so you think, maybe you'll be able to pass up on a quality look for the Spurs because they don't have as much time left on the clock. But, Jamal Shed gets blown by here by Jordan McLaughlin, and they perform an X out. So an X out is the corner help will switch onto the driver. And what's supposed to happen is Jamal Shed is supposed to, and this is a terrible X, but he's supposed to X out and come and help on the corner. And so that's what happens. But unfortunately, Jamal Shed's way too late, and Steph Castle has a pretty easy drive to the basket. He forces a foul. And so that's it. I'm not going to go too deep into it because you just saw multiple situations where that over aggressiveness hurt the Raptors defensively. It ended up being a hindrance to what they wanted to achieve. And I think it's just back to what I said with the Mavericks recap, square peg, round hole in terms of the roster and the talent that you have. I want you guys, homework here for everybody. If you guys get a chance to, go watch the Portland Trailblazers. They got Toumani Camara. They got Drew Holiday out there. Denny Avdia is a capable defender. They have multiple wing defenders who live and breathe by defending. And I'm not going to get into that too much, but this is actually a very good example for people. The Oklahoma City Thunder played the Dallas Mavericks, who the Raptors just played. Cooper Flagg was 1 of 9 in this game. Very much so struggled against Lou Dort, against Case and Wallace, against the ball pressure that OKC provides on a night-to-night basis. Those guys are a terror for the type of style that the Mavericks wanted to play and the ball handling that they lack. The Raptors were not able to enforce themselves against the Mavericks as much as the Thunder were. And of course, the Thunder are a championship level team. You expect that from on a night-to-night basis. There is a consistency to what they do. But that being said, that's the objective the Raptors are trying to reach. I've had a couple people on Twitter ask me, why is this team not succeeding defensively? They were a good defensive team in the second half of last year. And it's sort of becoming evident here that last season, the last half of that season, was a bit of fool's gold. And I will say, at the back half of last year, we didn't get a chance to watch a starting lineup of Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley defend, and include Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. We didn't get a chance to see those guys play high minutes together and defend at a high level and be successful defensively. That's not the same team. While it is virtually the same roster, we didn't actually get to see the same team. The team that was successful defensively last year was one that was including Jamal Shed, Jacoby Walter, Jonathan Mobo, obviously Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl every now and then. Those guys, yeah, of course, they play good defensively. The issue was that they were a terrible offensive team last year. And so now they've incorporated Brandon Ingram, an offensive talent. Obviously RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley is healthy this season, and that's a huge part of what they're trying to incorporate this year too. Their offensive players are not the defensive talent that they require them to be to play this type of style, and their defensive players are not good enough offensively to play within this system. That's why CMB is so intriguing, because CMB, as a rookie, I think, will be a pretty good defender. And how he impacts the game offensively, how he's able to, whether that's shooting the ball, whether that's playmaking, whether that's working in transition, whether that's finishing at the basket, how he's able to utilize himself offensively is a big part to him being a part of this defensive scheme. Grady Dick fell out of the rotation tonight. Jacoby Walter ended up playing 10 minutes. Grady Dick played 8 minutes. I understand that Grady Dick is not a perfect defender, but pointing it out to him, making him the guy who's going to suffer minutes-wise, is just going to hurt your offense, in my opinion. It's not the right recipe, especially because name me the good defensive players that played tonight for the Spurs, for the Raptors. Yeah, CMB was good defensively. Scotty had his moments defensively. I can't think of another good defender from tonight. So for Grady Dick to be the guy to get to kind of be the short end of the stick here, get the short end of the stick, I think is a bit unfair. I'm curious to see if there's a bigger reason to that. If they liked something else matchup-wise, or if they saw the Spurs trying to expose something of Grady's defensively. Grady is one of their best offensive players in terms of the gravity that he provides offensively and what the Raptors can do offensively with that gravity, just purely because teams respect him as a shooter. So I don't think it's the right call for him to get less and fewer minutes. I actually think that he probably needs to have a consistent part in the rotation. And that's the balance here for this Raptors team, is that their good offensive players are probably not their best defenders. Their best defenders are not their good offensive players. And there are two guys on this team that kind of fit into that description of being able to do both. And that is Scotty and that is CMB. Hopefully Jakob stays healthy, because Jakob is in that conversation too. IQ was touted to be that, has not been that defensively yet, and has struggled offensively. He's now 3 for 20 or 3 for 21 from 3 to start the season. It hasn't been good. And so there's a lot of bad right now for the Toronto Raptors. Also a lot of bad for my Blue Jays. What a tough ending. It's 3:26 in the morning right now. I'm going to go to bed. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope the Raptors play better basketball, folks. I hope the Blue Jays win this series. I hope for a lot of things. I hope for you to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate you guys as always. We will see you for the next Film Room. Bye-bye.